Hi, I'm Ron Sprunberg, co-founder and CEO of Hi Mama. Welcome to our podcast about all things early childhood education.
In this week's episode, we discuss the crucial role of culture in childcare and early learning programs. We look to some external thought leadership about establishing core values, making your team feel valued, and nonverbal cues that are all highly transferable to leaders in early childhood education. Chani Wilshansky is an early childhood strategist and leadership coach and founder of Discover Ed Consulting, a results-driven company designed for progressive directors who want to build school excellence. With a decade of experience and extensive training in the Reggio approach, she has had the privilege of training thousands of educators spanning 6 continents and 16 countries. If you're a leader looking for resources to take your childcare center or classroom to the next level with positive change, then stay tuned for this week's episode of the Preschool Podcast. Chani, welcome so much to the Preschool Podcast. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me, Ron. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Chani, you were a toddler teacher for a number of years, and then you made the transition last year to become an educational coach and strategist. What drove you to make this change in your career path?
It's a great question, actually. So I did this switch probably a little over a year ago, like around 18 months ago. And what really drove me to make that switch was about 3 years ago, I had transitioned from being the teacher, and I decided that I wanted to go and get more education. And I went back to college to get my master's in special ed. And during the time that I was there, I also started coming back to the school that I worked in just to help the teachers out a little bit with their lesson planning, their curriculum planning. And I started sharing some of the ideas that I did on different social media sites and some of my own social media. And I just started getting so much traction. People were like, oh my gosh, I want some more ideas. Can you help me? Can you do this? Can you do that? I did some pro bono workshops. And I started realizing that there was such a need for directors and leaders to train their staff and really bring this higher level of excellence into their schools. And I love public speaking. I love working with teams, and I love sharing my ideas. And I was like, it's time for me to transition and just move on to a higher calling and be able to help, thousands of more people.
Awesome. And so far, what are some of the insights you've gathered in your time doing this work with childcare and early learning programs?
Yeah, so there's so much insight, and it's always fascinating for me when I get on the phone with directors and just talk with them and just really listen to what are some of the underlying struggles or core issues that go on in schools. And it's so fascinating because I've actually spoken to over 100 directors from all over the world, really 6 different continents. And there's one thing that is this common thread, no matter where you live in this world, and that is every director wants to build the right culture in her school. Every director wants to have a school where everyone just feels welcome, everyone wants to be inspired, everyone does their best. And I thought that was really interesting as I did the research, and that's why I've really dove into this and really helping schools create the culture that they want in their school.
Out of curiosity, when you had those conversations with those directors, did you ask them what their main focus was or the main thing they wanted to improve and they said culture, or did you kind of drive that part of the conversation?
That's actually a great question. So one of the questions, I ask a bunch of different questions when I speak with directors. One of them is, please tell me what your biggest pain point in your school is right now. That's one question. And then the other one is, what are some of your hopes and dreams for your school? And when I look at the 2 responses and I, was sifting through all the data, it keeps coming up. It all goes back to, if you have the right culture, this problem gets solved. If you create the right space, this problem gets solved. So all the big pain points and all those big dreams, when directors spend the time to create the right culture and vision in their school, everything else falls in the right trajectory.
Right. So they weren't necessarily saying my biggest pain point is to improve my culture.
No one said that. No, actually, no. Yeah, it's more of like, okay, this is the underlying cause. Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think that is an issue in a lot of childcare programs, or why maybe it's not getting the attention that it may deserve?
So I mean, there's a number of things. I think one of them is that directors are extremely bogged down with a lot of responsibility. Multiple directors have a lot of different titles or hats that they have to wear. Like some directors are also teachers. They also have to get into the classroom. A lot of directors don't have the right help or support. Like maybe they don't have enough, assistant support, like to help them do data entry or, editing newsletters, or maybe there isn't the right cleaning crew in the school, and like the director is responsible to like oversee how the staff clean up. So I find that directors have so much responsibility on their plate. And what ends up happening is a lot of the time the director spends her day putting out fires and just trying to get everything running under control. And then if you tell her, oh, we should create like a culture, she's like, yeah, that's a really lofty concept. Like that would be great, but I don't have enough kids in this class, or I don't have that, or I'm having a state inspector. Like I don't have time to deal with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got 1,000 other things to do right now, so I don't really have time for that, unfortunately. Yeah,
exactly.
Fair enough.
Like my to-do list is from here to Texas. Like don't tell me that I need to do this also.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we deal with that as a director?
Yeah, so the first thing is you want to remove the concept that the culture is this unattainable goal or this big, like, oh, that would be so nice, like one day. You want to look at it that the culture is something that you create every single day through your gestures, your nonverbal cues, the emails that you send out to parents, what's hanging up on the wall, like all of those things play a role in culture. And, Marie Forleo, she says that success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. And it's the little actions that you take every day that create the bigger vision and culture. And so the first step that I would tell a director to do is really think about what are the 3 to 5 core values that are really important for you to have in your school. And like, if you don't have those, then that person isn't a fit. All the way from the teacher, all the way down, like all the way to the custodian that's, cleaning the building. Like they all need to have these values. So Zappos, the online shoe company, one of their core values when they're hiring people is that the person has to be humble. And the way that they test it out is that when someone comes for a job interview, they have subordinates do the interviewing process. And they teach these people to look for subtle cues in the person that's being interviewed, that if they're uncomfortable with someone like a subordinate who's doing interviewing and like they feel like, oh my gosh, like the CEO or the manager should be interviewing me, like why are you interviewing me? If they're uncomfortable with that, they don't get the job. They're not a fit, because you need to be humble to work here. And I think that's fascinating, because as a director, like, do we really take the time to say, what are my non-negotiables? Like, what are my real values? So directors will say things like, oh, I want my teachers to be warm and authentic and progressive and takes initiative and problem solvers. And so my action step would be really unpack that. Like, what does it look like if your teacher's warm? What does it look like if your teacher takes initiative? Like, what does she have to do in order for you to view her as someone that takes initiative? And really just make a whole list of all these things and then rate them from 1 to 5 and really like zero it down to, okay, these are the 5 things that are like, I must, like all my teachers have to have it. All the people in my building have to be warm, or all the people in my building have to be, their own problem solvers, because I don't want to be the one solving everyone's problems all day. I want people to know how to solve their own struggles or whatever it is and come to me if they need me, but I don't want to have to be constantly taking care of all these little things.
I do think that it's super important to also have those values like humility in there, in addition to the skill sets, as you mentioned, super important.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I'm so happy you brought that up. Yeah.
So core values, definitely key. What else can I do to create an amazing culture in my preschool program?
Yeah, sure. So the other one is really about making sure that all of your teachers and everyone that's on your team really feels valued. And that's a really hard thing to do if you just think of like, okay, how can I make everyone feel valued? And the way that you really could break it down is think about Gary Chapman has a book. It's called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And he goes into it in great depth. But just to explain to you what it is that we want to understand how every teacher feels valued. Because some teachers, they need to hear appreciation and validation in front of all their peers. Like when you do a staff meeting and then you say, oh, and I just want to thank Sarah for doing X, Y, and Z. Like it was, we're so grateful for that. And that makes Sarah feel amazing that she's being recognized in front of everyone. And then you can have another teacher that will be utterly humiliated if you compliment her in front of her peers because she's not that kind of person. Like she wants to be thanked in private or with, a handwritten note. So everyone really feels validation and appreciation in a very different way. And I actually have a PDF called The Teacher's Language of Appreciation, which is part of the gift. And one director used it, and she gave it to a teacher. And the teacher said, "Do you know what I want?" So the director's like, "What?" She said, "This is she's a teacher. I think she has like 5 kids or something." And she said, "I don't want any cash bonus. I don't want any, gift cards or massages or manicures. Like, I don't want any of that. I just want to go home an hour earlier so I can have lunch with my husband before my kids get home." And the director's like, "Done, no problem. We'll have one of the floaters come in and take care of your class. You could go home early." And I was like, amazing. Like, look what you did. You made this teacher feel amazing. Like that was all she wanted. And this was a teacher who's working in the school for over 23 years. And she's never shared with the director how she really feels thanked. Like that's all she wanted. And so this is one of the best ways to create a culture where teachers feel valued is that find out what teachers really want. What are their hobbies? What are their favorite foods? One director texted her teacher and she's like, "Hey, I just want to thank you so much for putting together those documentation boards. I'm going to be stopping by this coffee shop. Do you want me to get you a latte or a cappuccino? It's on me." And the teacher wrote back this text that was so heartfelt, like I was crying, and I didn't even know this teacher. Like the teacher couldn't stop thanking the director for just getting her a cup of coffee that's like, what, $5? So it's when you do that personalized outreach where people feel so appreciated.
So is there any more specific points about how you can improve culture in your preschool program?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the last thing that I would say is from one of my favorite authors. His name is David Marquette, and he wrote the book, Turn the Ship Around. And for anyone that's listening that really wants to become a leader in their school, this is just a fantastic book to get your hands on. But one of the things that he writes about is the nonverbal cues that happen throughout the day. So one of the questions that you can ask yourself is, do your teachers take action to protect themselves or for the better of the school? And really thinking about, well, what do my teachers do every day? Is everyone just trying to protect their own hide, or is everyone really working together to make this a better place? And I think if every director really takes a step back and thinks about, well, what happened this past week? This teacher did that. Was that something that was good for everyone, or was she just trying to save herself? So those are questions to ask yourself, what's really going on? Am I creating a place where everyone wants to help each other, like collaborate? Or is this a place where everyone just wants to do their thing, protect themselves, and then go home?
Now, if I'm a director and I'm saying, Chani, this all sounds wonderful. I do want to do these things, but again, I've got all these things going on around me. I really I don't have time for it.
Great. So here's my first thing. When it comes to teacher appreciation and validation, the first thing I always tell directors is you have to start super small. And so look at your calendar, and you want to pick one day a week for a 30-minute block of time. So let's say you pick Tuesdays. Tuesdays from 10 to 10:30, you're going to be focused on your teacher appreciation. And so what you would have on your desk during that time is you would have the roster of all your teachers in your school. And you would start just making your way through the roster and say, okay, I have a half hour now. These top 4 teachers or these 3 teachers right here on the top of the list, what can I do to do something that's personalized outreach to them? Can I send someone a personalized thank you email? Can I send her a voice memo? Can I write her a handwritten note? Maybe I can get her lunch today from the cafeteria. Like, what can I do for her based on what she wrote in her teacher appreciation guide? What can I do for her to make her feel valued? And that's it. And after the 30 minutes are up, you go and continue doing whatever you have to do. And next week, Tuesday, you come back to it again. And so by the end of the month, you've done personalized outreach for every single person. And it only took you 2 hours out of your entire month because it's just a half hour once a week.
I think everyone can learn from that point.
Yeah, just really time blocking in that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to be proactive about it, I guess, right?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, that would be my thing. It's about really there are certain things that's on your calendar, right? If you're flying somewhere, it's on your calendar that you're taking a flight. If you have an important meeting with, the state or inspection, it's on your calendar because you have to be there. So it's about putting it on your calendar that you need to be there for your staff. And you don't need to be there for them all the time. It's about setting that time block on Tuesdays from this and this time. I'm going to be focused on thinking about what can I do to really be there for my team.
You mentioned before that having an amazing culture really fixes a lot of the pain points that you might have on a day-to-day basis in your child care program. Can you explain a little bit more about how? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So it really depends on some of the pain points. But let's say for example, a lot of typical pain points that directors have is, and they'll tell things to me like, my teachers aren't creative enough. They're not bringing new progressive ideas into their classroom. Or teacher meetings are really a drag. Like, my veterans don't want to be there. Or everyone's coming late. Like, I'm always dealing with this, punctuality. Like, no one's coming on time. Or parents don't appreciate us. We do so much and parents don't value what we do, right? And so those are some of the pain points, right? So now let's go back to culture. If there's a culture where teachers feel truly valued and appreciated, let's turn it, let's say, for example, to personalized relationships, right? When you feel valued and appreciated by your spouse or your partner, you will do anything. Like, take out the garbage, no problem. Oh my gosh, I'm in a great mood today. It's like that honeymoon phase, right? Like, nothing's an issue, right? So if you take it back to the school, if a teacher always feels like my director's got my back, like she really cares about me, she values me, she appreciates me, they will toe the line for you. Like, they will put themselves out there. They will work harder than you can ever imagine because they know that you got their back. They know that you're going to be there. They know that you're going to recognize their efforts. Why do teachers not pull themselves? Because, why bother? That's what a lot of teachers tell me, why bother? Why should I? No one appreciates what I do anyways. Why should I come on time? It's really hard for me. No one appreciates it anyways, So this really, really takes such a huge toll. If you really invest in it, you will see the results from it.
Got it. Any other closing thoughts about culture to wrap it up? Let's say, if I'm going to take one or two things away from this conversation as an administrator of a childcare program, what would those things be?
Yeah, I think it would be two key things. And that the first thing is about the teacher appreciation, and that really opening up your calendar and seeing when you can really time block to do personalized outreach for your staff. And just starting with something as simple as that. And I'll just add, even for the directors, like when I speak with them, some of them are like, but I'm really introverted. Like, I don't like doing personalized outreach. Like, it's hard for me to do that. And that's why I tell them, just pick a half hour. Like, I'm not telling you to do this every day, to always have your door open. Yeah, for some people, it's really hard to constantly put themselves out there, and I totally understand. And that's why I just time block just a half hour once a week and then slowly build into it. Because it's like a muscle that you're flexing. You know, we don't pick up 50 pounders right away. We start with the 5 pounders. So that's my first action step. Really do that. Like, really download the guide, give it out to your staff, and really understand what your teachers need to feel valued. And the last action step would be to take some time to, when you're walking around your school building, because directors are always, walking around the building, try to look at what are some of the nonverbal things that are going on. Like, do I walk around like a manager, like walking in to see, oh, is everyone doing everything that they're supposed to? Or do I walk around trying to say, is there anything that I can help you with? Do you need support in something? How can I help you? Oh, let me take care of this child. I see your hands are full. Like, I'll take her to the bathroom for you. Or like, what is your nonverbal attitude as you walk around the building?
This is a question I ask everybody. What excites you most about early education right now?
What excites me most about early education right now? Well, I think the first thing is that it's really on the rise of becoming, like, much more people are becoming more aware of the value of early childhood education, and how if we really invest in our young children, birth to 6 years old or whatever it is in the preschool years, the rewards are tremendous. And what excites me most is that teachers everywhere, the young teachers that are getting in, and the older directors even, or the young directors, are really coming with this mission of, like, we want to create a good school. We want to create a place where every child thrives and shines and gets the skills that they need for life: critical thinking, playing skills, independence, just being able to truly be unique and be themselves. Teachers get really excited about it, and directors are like, yes, I want that. I really want that. And while it wasn't so apparent, even 5-10 years ago, now it's like everyone really is starting to understand more and more the value of being there for the child and being there for the parent. And so I'm really excited about where this course is going to take us. Like, where are we going to see early child in a couple of years from now? What are the children going to look like because of the teacher's commitment and the director's commitment to each child?
Totally. Yeah. We're seeing a big shift there,
Yeah,
I think, for sure.
absolutely.
Now, you've mentioned a couple times about the guide, which we're going to put up on our website, on himama.com, where we will put up this episode of the podcast. Now, where else would people go to find you online? Let's say they wanted to have a chat with you and learn more about some of the things you've talked about related to culture today.
Sure. So on my website, there is actually, my website is discoveredconsulting.com. And on my website, there's actually a place where you can book a free session with me. It's a complimentary strategy session.
Oh, cool.
And actually, during that call is where I help the director uncover her core values, her culture, and I help her give her some really good actionable tips and strategies to drive her school forward.
Oh, cool. Okay. For whatever it's worth for our listeners, I would highly encourage that because, there's not that many free resources out there, especially somebody's time. So that sounds like a great offer. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
So, Chani, I really love how you've used thought leadership external from early childhood education and thought about how to apply that in a childcare and early learning context. I think that's a very powerful concept that I love to see. Just going back to some of the specific resources that you mentioned for our listeners, the book written by the Zappos founder, Delivering Happiness, the 5 Languages of Appreciation, and Turn the Ship Around sound like 3 really great resources for any early childhood educator to read. And I know I've read a couple of those and I can recommend them myself. So keep doing what you're doing. I really love it.
Thank you. Thanks, Ron. This has been really amazing. And I just want to wish everyone the best of luck. You know, every leader that's listening to this has already carved out time to become a more effective leader. So just the fact that you're listening shows that you care.
100%. Thanks so much, Chani.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's your name?
Michaela.
Michaela. How are you?
Hi.
You having fun playing?
Yes.
It's a nice day, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. What's your favorite thing to play out here?
Playing monsters.
You like to play monsters? Do you like the swings? Okay. What else you like to do?
Play my Dora bike.
Oh, with your Dora bike? Oh, okay. Do you ride fast?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Well, have fun here. All right.